Good evening, TNT family. We have Dr. Puram back with us and Mr. Vid Ram with us here today. And we're going to be discussing a few things, the economy, and also plans for this new government, how we should go about things. And also, we'll be talking a little bit about the election results. So, first of all, we're going to just kind of touch a little bit on the election results. So, Mr. Siram, just like to get your views a little bit on how you saw the election, results and how you feel about things.
Yeah, good night, Gary. Good night, Dr. Maraj. Good night to all the viewers and listeners.
Good night.
Um, the 10 years of bad management, everyone wants a change. So it was not totally unexpected. Quite frankly, there's still some of the constituents that are being challenged. I hope they're being challenged because there's some irregularities that have surfaced, and I think that should be pursued till the end, so that the truth be told. So I think the people were just tired of the PNM for the simple reasons that they were not seeing results that were benefiting them. What they were seeing is that a lot of misinformation, a lot of skewed management to benefit a few, and the general population, what I would call also bread and butter issues, were not being addressed in any meaningful way. There were also many broken promises, and there were also many things done by the last government where they ought to have been challenged in a legal manner. I always believe in that. If something is wrong, challenge it in a legal manner. And I had written an article that they did not deserve to even put themselves up for election. In other words, they ought not to have qualified. So when you look at the things that they did, and I'll give you for example, and Gary, you're very familiar with it. During the COVID, how could you discard your own citizens from coming back to Trinidad, and at the same time allow a plane from Venezuela to land surreptitiously into Trinidad for their personal business? You can't do that. You can't do that. You cannot deprive a person of their nationality and all the privileges that goes with it. So that's just one. Secondly, with regards to the appointment of the chief police, you remember a recommendation was made by the screening committee, and that just went to the president to sign off, and the prime minister intervened and pulled it back, and that is a massive interference, blatant interference with the legal process with regards to the appointment of the head of an independent institution. And that alone, and that is where we need very strong opposition or government to say, wait a minute, there are some issues here, legal issues here, that ought to be challenged. And I think this, I worked on several investigations on financial fraud, and the lawyer who I worked with, he taught me a very valuable lesson. He said, once something is wrong, go and find a law that will address it. So I'm very happy that there's a change. There are certain promises made, and that's fine. It's all in the heat of the elections. But we have to step back now and see the timing of delivery of those promises, the timing. All cannot be done in one day. So managing expectations going forward is critical. In the meantime, my feeling is that the government can identify low hanging fruits so that they continue now to address those low hanging fruits and bring about material benefit to the general population, to the general population. I also believe that there ought to be a strategy, concurrent strategy, but you're not going to get immediate results, to look at some of the transactions that the past government did and look at it and see whether it was properly done. That means there were procedures. There's a, in my view, and Dr. Maraj, I'm not sure of your background, but you could probably attest to it, is that the government owes a fiduciary duty to the population because they are managing our money. They are managing our money. And
Yes.
so I think it's very exciting times, quite frankly. And I think there are solutions in sight for Trinidad. And I think the manifesto or manifesto, several manifestos as they named it, has very good material in terms to give government the guidance to follow their own recommendations. And you can always change depending on situations. So as you go along, you can always change. But one of the main thing is to be transparent as you go along. We are not going to have a perfect government in any part of the world. So therefore, government has to be open to say, wait a minute, we made a mistake, but we are changing course based on the following. So there should always be justification for decisions made, and this is where the problem, where government believes that they can just a prime minister or so can just make a decision. So they need to revisit the processes for decision making and ensure that they stick to it. So I'm very optimistic of what's going to happen to Trinidad. I'm very optimistic with regards to funding, with regards to getting finance to to keep those promises. I have some good ideas if they're willing to listen, and I think they will. For the simple reason, we don't have a choice at this stage. But apart from debt financing, there are several other ways, and I'm sure among the ministers who will be appointed, etc., they will have very good ideas as well as to how to bring about the cash required to invest in Trinidad and Tobago and really meet the promises that were made on the platform. And the question of managing those promises, expectations, is extremely important at this stage so that no one can blame the government, blame Mrs. Prasad Bisesa for making wild promises. And I think it's our duty to look at those promises and see how we can help her um, keep those promises to the population because trust is extremely important going forward. So, I would, Mr. Maraj, if Dr. Maraj, perhaps you would want to chip in a bit. And
Yeah, I just have one more person came in, and Mr. Sumant Singh is also here with us, and he's a little bit familiar. You guys might know each other,
I don't know. I
but
think we may,
Mr.
but
Sumant, just introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll move forward with the discussion.
yeah, but my name is Suman. Actually, it's Suman Siram Singh, not
oh,
Siri Ram Singh.
not
Siram
to
Singh.
you.
Yeah, originally from down south, Apucat, Faisal area. I've been here for over 35, 40 years. I did a couple of projects for the partnership government the last time, including the laptop project as a director IT and director of tourism and so on. But after the 2015 election, I couldn't take it. I just came back here to upskill myself. I did it in the new things. Always been in the cutting edge of technology. So I did things like digital strategy. So I'm a digital marketing strategist. I'm a data analyst as well as an AI, artificial intelligence practitioner. However, my background is in economics and my master's in MBA in information technology. I have a master's in electronic government, the e-concept, whether it's e-marketing, e-business, e-government, and a master's in hotel and tourism. So with that background and framework, upskilling now, I was reading the latest Gartner report today. It says that 80% of the US workforce has to be retrained over the next 2 years.
Mhm.
And it's in keeping with the technological enhancements which are coming on the way that is bringing forth greater efficiency and greater productivity. So I'm at the forefront of that. I'm like to be at this stage, willing to do what I have to do. I made a lot of contributions to the UNC manifestos. Like Gary, you have the email, right? In education, in health, in social media, in technology, and AI. Those five manifestos, I had my major components were part of it. So I'm here to assist, discuss, and do whatever we can do from this side here to help the UNC government in whatever whichever form they need help in. I'm a resource person, good in my strategic planning. That's about in a nutshell what I'm about. So
So, Dr. Parum Maraj, you can respond now to Mr. Seeram, and then Mr. Singh can also respond in his question. Go ahead.
Well, good night again, Mr. Singh.
okay, guy.
Okay, good night, sir, Mr. Shiram. Well, I'm a medical doctor. Oh, last night I forgot to mention that I'm also a scientist, medical scientist, military doctor. I'm a military doctor, and I have also was director of a lot of hospitals here, and presently I'm the director of the military hospital here in Venezuela. One of the directors, right? So I'm also trained in stem cells, to do stem cells, to try to bring that improvement in stem cells and other medical technology with the help of Mr. Singh and his technology in medicine to improve the health system in Trinidad and Tobago, even to the Caribbean, using Trinidad as well. It has to be a very, very attractive and very excellent service to give to our nation, right? Right now, presently, the health situation is in a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. We all, right? So I'm willing. I am open 24 hours in whatever assessment or whatever I can do, allowed to be done as well, to improve the health system in Trinidad and Tobago. All of us have to be united as and very honestly in the political way in helping Trinidad and Tobago. We should not make errors. Even we are the colleague who is a UNC colleague and he did something wrong or tried to do business, we have to take him out, no? Immediately. You agree, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, he cannot be there. So the error with the past government, they only talk about themselves, they only care for themselves, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago, no. The people of Trinidad and Tobago deserve the best. It's a very small country, right? Very small, and it has a lot of good people, excellent people, brilliant people, but these people are in slavery. They are being enslaved. They have mental problems there with what was created by this government, the past government. Trinidad also has a lot of resources, oil resources, and that it was not given to the people, it was taken away. So with this government now, with UNC, Miss Pamela, we have to support her 101 or 100 and more % in everything. Okay. Last night at 2:00 in the morning, Gary made a call there, and I responded to him one time. I say, I'm ready to work 24 hours. We have to work 24 hours for this country. As a good team, an excellent team.
Guys, I did send you the health proposal. I did furnish it to you guys.
Yeah,
Gary.
I saw it. I saw it.
Right.
Oh.
And that is the genesis of the new health policy, which is to be implemented in Trinidad, the part of the manifesto, as they call it.
Mhm.
I said it to Dr. Bodo and the Prime Minister herself.
I didn't get it. I didn't look at my email today because I was in surgery. I did 5 surgeries today,
Wow.
right? So I just came back there. Right? So
No
you
problem.
you can send it to me again.
Send it to you again?
Well, I will check and see if it is there.
Okay.
Check, please.
You should have it. I took a look at it. It is the basic foundation to build on. And that's what it's exactly the way I'm thinking. So I do appreciate what you put out there. So it's 100% support on my stand.
Okay.
Yeah, but that way you notice the caveat to do that, to implement that, is the relationship between contract workers and the public servant. That is one of the core problems in the public service and in the government itself. I've been through 2 governments, NER, UNC, and P&M governments, and the implementation of we all have good plans. There are dozens of plans on different topics around, but this implementation where it's all fall apart. And because of the systemic structure and different policies and so on, these things have to be updated to really reflect the modern times. Because, like, for example, if I am a contract employee and I give an instruction to a subordinate or lower class personnel who is a public servant, they don't take these instructions from you. They tell you straight, you are a contract employee. We take instructions from the permanent secretary. Even the minister cannot, in any way, do anything about these lower paid staff. From the Clark one, you cannot tell them anything as a minister. They take instructions only from the permanent secretary.
So we'll have to address that kind of issues, and where the minister directs the permanent secretary what he wants done, and
no. They abide by the policies and laws of the civil service. That's why legislation is important. My only solution.
Yeah, but I'm saying when we go in there, we have to set it up where we have to clarify these things, from the beginning, that you are hired to advise the ministry, and they have to comply. And if they fail to comply, then there has to be consequences.
You see, I did the laptop project, the same thing. There was a part of the team, I told you all, so there was 22 P&M party groups heads. All of them are directors in the Ministry of Education. And Tim, myself, he had a hard time, such a hard time. He tried to move something from this part of the desk to the next part. They did everything to hold back the project, and they did hold it back. They did hold back the project for a number of months till I came in and I delivered it on time and saved them $30 million on the project. But you need to get rid of some of these people or sideline them or don't get them involved in quick action. Low-hanging fruits you can pick right away, but once they have them in the setup, they will do everything. And because of the civil service structure is governed by the civil service policies and strategies, there's nothing you can do unless they decide to change that system. And if you see my proposal is to literally fire all these permanent secretaries and replace them with CEOs. So we make it a sort of private sector driven and use metrics, key performance indicators, and your goals, make sure they are aligned. So nobody can deviate from that. Once you begin to deviate from it, it should be someone monitoring and evaluation department can, give them the shaft, as the case may be. So that is one of the biggest bugbears that will hinder the implementation of any of these projects the ministries decide to go on with.
Well, I'm happy to have Mr. C. Ram here tonight because, the question last time was, from our senior Dr. Maraj here, he's going to join us pretty soon. Where are we going to find that money, to to do the things that we're planning to do. Well, Mr. Siram, if we cut out the wastage and the leakage of
Correct.
our finance and our treasury there, where all we deal with all those who are hoarding our forex, right, Mr. Siram? We can finance the health care that our citizens needs, right?
Why like we getting sabotage or something or what?
Mr. Siram, you're frozen. I think he's frozen. All right, let me call
Yeah.
him. So you guys chat a little bit. Let me try to get him back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Doc. I sent you the email. It has basically what the Kamala Prasad government is trying to do with respect to health.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Things like I identify some low-hanging fruits which they can implement within the first 100 days or the first 3 months, and some, little medium-term plans where they could think about going forward within 2 years. And
Right. Right.
like everything, when I do something, I do it with the sense of I give you the rationale why we should do this. So
Right.
you can see the reasoning behind it, and then you
Mhm.
could also see the targets, what they're trying to achieve by doing this. So that is why there's a link. When you have to measure anything, success or any sort of criteria, you must have measurement of what they call metrics.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
have key performance indicators. And then you have your targeted goals, which you're trying to achieve.
You're
Right.
back.
Right.
Gary, can you see
You
me
hearing us,
now?
Mr. Siram?
Yes, we're all seeing
Yeah,
you.
yeah, we hearing you. So what we was asking
Okay,
you
I'm
to
back on
do
then.
is to respond to how we would find the money to fund the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah, and this is where we have to look at financing for the government. Now, the government basically, um, first of all, cutting out wastage is our number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. So we have to be very careful as to what we spend on. And if you will notice, progressive governments are saying, what are some of the wastages? And given our technology today, do we need an embassy in every country? So we have to ask those things, cut from the top, not from the bottom. So that is
That's true.
one, by cutting down the expenditures, that's where savings are. But that's not going to close the gap. It's not going to close the financing gap for the government because repeatedly the government has been understating the budget gap by about $5 to $6 billion. In other words, when they come out and say, look, we have a gap of 5 billion, it's actually 11 billion. And
Mm-hmm.
how they're financing that gap is by way of not paying their bills, not paying their bills. For example, they have $7 billion, $6 to $7 billion in VAT refund that they're not paying. They have
Mhm.
about $130 million payable to the cane farmers. And I'm so glad I sent a note to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, and she did bring it on the platform that cane farmers will be paid. But when you list out all the payables, that it's significant amount that is not included in the debt to GDP ratios and so on. So there's a lot of misinformation with regards to the matrices, economic indicators. So where to get the money from? Government has a lot of idle resources, and that is one way they can see what we don't need and the country needs. Government can sell. There's a whole list of things that government can sell, and
We could
legitimately
put some
so. In
people
other
right
words, it's
through
not going to
Mr.
impact
Siram.
on the quality of of social services that they're going to give to the population. It's not going to impact on. These are just idle assets just sitting there. People are squatting, people are not doing anything in it. Idle lands. The third way of raising finance, and which I would offer to do for them, is to review all their borrowing contracts, and see if that can be renegotiated.
Refinance.
There was one particular contract that I had looked at when Petrotrin, they had borrowed money in yen, And I'd looked at it. This was years ago. And I went to Petrotrin and I said, look, there's a prepayment clause in your contract. If you can just borrow the US dollars because they have a currency risk. You are holding a currency risk for the simple reason your earnings are in US dollars and your payments are in yen. So if the yen strengthen, and in fact the yen was strengthening in those years, so whilst they're paying down the loan in TT dollars, paying against the loan in TT dollars, on the books the actual loan was increasing. So I did solve that problem for them. Um, they didn't want to repay it, so I said no problem. I structured a yen debt and defeased it because there are certain preconditions for defeasance. So we were able to get it off their books. So there are many things we can do by looking at the whole portfolio and renegotiating better terms once permission is there embedded in the loan contract that you can repay. So there are other ways. There are several investigations I did of fraud, financial fraud. If government has the strength to deal with it, I'll be there to help them. It has to be well structured, getting opinions from very good senior lawyers, international lawyers, and maybe if you all could identify a few, I'll be glad to give them all the information, discuss with them, and to see whether government is in a strong position to claim against the bank. The other area which I was working on when UNC was in power, 2010, um, was that the banks have been mis, miscalculating or misrepresenting their treatment of, of bonds, CARICOM bonds. And they really shortchange the inland revenue for about $6 to $7 billion. So all those things can be looked at very seriously if we can put a team, the best team, finance guys, plus the securities lawyers, banking lawyers, and look at these matters and say, do we have a case? Do we have a case? So, there are ways to generate funds. Now, those cases, once they are satisfied, is not ongoing. But in the meantime, hopefully we can get the economy going. And there are several major decisions to make. She already announced she don't want to adjust the exchange rate. Well, then we have to do something else. And the something else is a negative listing. Now, a lot of argument arises that there'll be a breach of the WTO, etc., etc. And I'm saying no. All we have to do is ration how we allocate foreign exchange. You could import what you want. We're not stopping anyone from importing, but we want to control what we release foreign exchange for.
Yeah.
Once there's a shortage of foreign exchange, we have to be prudent on how we use it. Because if we become reckless and say, look, this is a free for all economy, whoever bid the highest for foreign exchange will get it. Some very rich person, assuming Elon Musk is a Trinidadian, and he said, look, I want 7 billion US dollars to go to the moon. What are you going to do? We can't. We have to look at the public interest on how we allocate scarce resources. Now, the African countries have done it very well. Ghana has said, look, I don't care what you buy, but we are not going to give you from the stock of official foreign exchange, FX. So we can learn from other countries. Now, when you even Barbados, they said, no, you're not allowed to import chicken because we want to encourage our local chicken industry. So we must generate a list of a negative list so that we could protect our local producers and aim for self-sufficiency in food within 5 years. So what are the major items? Sugar we can easily produce. I did a whole paper on that years ago and presented to Mr. Pandey in the 2007 elections. He did announce on the platform that he's going to restart the sugar industry. So there are several things we can do for import substitution and keep that money internal. I saw a report the other day that we import 94% of our food. What does
Oh,
that mean? That means to say if we don't have foreign exchange, we can't eat.
Yeah,
And
right.
on the other hand, the other countries like Guyana, they were at around 34% um, importation of food. In other words, they were 60 some percent self-sufficient. So we can aim for all those things. We have to recognize that Trinidad is not a rich place like before, and we all have to make adjustments. The problem with adjusting is if you only asking for a section of the population to tighten their belt, and the others, for example, you're giving a pension of what, 70, 80 $1,000 a month to the prime minister. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So all these things have to be adjusted, and we must reduce. There's one thing we must reduce is our propensity to import, and that can be done. And secondly, we must try and reduce the disparity between high income, wealthy individuals and the general population, because disparity causes social unrest. So these are things I think we can do, but we must have a very focus on the objectives we want to achieve within the next 5 years. So those are some of my ideas. Just imagine, and I've been preaching this for a long while. The 2015 manifesto had it, where we have to set up a special division within a ministry or special ministry for recycling. Right now, we ship out all our steel. So our steel goes to China. Could imagine the shipping cost. It is refined there into different flats and rebars and so on, and then shipped back to Trinidad. We can set up a recycling plant for steel and for different ferrous and non-ferrous materials in Trinidad itself. So these things will put people back to work. And what you're going to find is a deepening of the economy, our propensity to import. We have to have a target on that. Within 5 years, let's reduce it overall by X%. So this is where the economics comes in and the feasibility and so on. And I'm looking forward to some very exciting times over the next 5 years. And
Well,
with support
I
what
hope.
Lisa saying and Dr. Maharaj, who is not looking for any remuneration, and that is the quality of persons we need now. To put a team like that where Mrs. Prasad Bisessa will say, look, we are dealing with people who are genuinely interested in developing Trinidad and Tobago
Mhm.
and who are not looking to pick our pockets,
For
not pick our
businessman.
pockets. I'll give you another
Mhm.
big example that I would like to recommend to her. The government has several state enterprises. Each of those state enterprises do their own financial analysis of any fundraising or any bond financing or any what you call negotiations with banks and financial institutions, and they are not equipped. They are not equipped because these investment banks, international investment banks, they come with a different agenda. They test. They first of all they test the level of knowledge that you have, and they are quite open to lying to you so that they get the best deal and you have the short end of the stick. So we need to centralize within the Ministry of Finance a special department to look at all financial needs and fundraising for state enterprises, because that is where a lot of fraudulent transactions are done. I was called by the chairman of WASA at the time and said, Wade, look at this for me. Does it make sense? And when I looked at it, the bank was taking out over 30% as fees and profits on a very simple deal. 30%. So we have to set up institutions or departments to protect our central treasury. Our central treasury has been raided for years,
Yes.
as long as I've been in banking, and I really became aware of it in by 1998 when I left and started to review some of these transactions. So you're looking at 27 years. Our treasury has been raided, and that is where you ask me where to get money. Let's protect our treasury, and
Dr.
make
Leaks, are
sure
you guys
no
hearing me?
bad dollar is spent.
Just checking.
Uh,
Are you hearing me?
I have one question. No, do you think nationalizing the bank, all the banks of Trinidad that is in Trinidad and Tobago is foreign banks, the majority. If you nationalize the banks, it will be much cheaper, like how they did here in Venezuela, right? What do you think
You
about?
can nationalize the bank is one. One of the benefits of having foreign banks is that they bring new technology and so on. But I don't disagree with you. You don't have to nationalize the banks, but have the banks owned by nationals,
Yes.
because the international banks, they are only been raiding Trinidad and Tobago. They've been
Hmm.
raiding, and what happens is that the senior officers go from one bank to the next, and they don't carry good habits. They carry all the bad habits, all the bad habits. But what we need is strong regulators. What we need is very strong regulators, and our regulators are. I think I've repeated it so many times, at the risk of being sued, but they have been sleeping on their work, sleeping on the wheel at the wheels. We can't afford that anymore, and
No.
the banks are not playing their part in national development. They're not playing their part in national development, and we need to address that. I'm glad that Mr. Prasad Bisesa did say on the platform that they're going to deal with banking issues, but I
Yes.
don't think anyone there in the team has a full handle on it, and I think I'll be delighted to lead a team and deal with these things in a very professional manner, that you don't want to disturb confidence, but at least start dealing with it very professionally, one item at a time, one item at a time.
We have to
I'll
do
give you
some
an
forensic
example, Mr.
investigation,
Singh.
shouldn't we?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I said we have to do some forensic investigation as to how the money is being spent, plug the leaks, and then rechannel the money so it goes to the benefit of the people. Right now,
What?
they have several government ministers and their affiliates have contracts and they bleed in the treasury. So these are the things that we would have to deal with, and then redirect the money to where it's needed to make the life better for the people. So if we plug those leaks, while we're working on the exports and revamping the economy and all the ideas to boost the marketing of TNT products, then we also have to do some plugging of the leaks.
Hmm.
So go ahead, guys.
I think what's happening in the island, there's little or no economic activity with respect to exports from Trinidad. There's very little because of so much closures of small and medium-sized enterprises that have occurred over the last 10 years because of, again, a lack of foreign exchange. But I like to agree with what Wade said. The, all these state agencies, their financial competence are limited. And it will be nice if we develop a blueprint for any such, let's say, foreign financing to any state corporations will come through one window. And it can be a blueprint. Hey, you know what? We developed this in-house. It can be resident in the Ministry of Finance. And anybody requiring financing, anybody means any state entity, like Ollie's and Pipdeco down that area and so on. You want to financing? Let's come to us. We have the blueprint on what are the things we should negotiate on and how we're going to do it. In other words, you have the expertise of how to do it, rather than leave it up to the individual entities to do their own thing. Most times they get, sucked in by much better negotiators, which are the foreign entities, and they're paying a pound and a crown for 30 years or 20 years, as the case may be. That's a significant leakage.
And the people of Trinidad and Tobago is paying the consequences today because of that damage, those leaks. No, you say leak, it sounds like a very pretty word, but I would like to call it corruption. No, the first thing we have to do, we have to make a good prison system as well, because we cannot permit people to take out money from the country without any justification and don't pay the consequences. We cannot forgive that. We are not God to forgive, right? I have a drastic way of dealing with these type of aptitudes. No, we also have to try our best in not the word getting rid of people. No, you cannot do say that. We try to put people who are willing, or put people, not try to put people who are willing to build the country. Now, self-production, what I know, no, self-production, our own production is very rentable, right? In much cases, it develop the country. We should be depending on foreign importation of food. We have to support and support strongly the local farmers to bring in food. What happened here in Venezuela? We were dependent on production for foreign importation, and look what happened when they placed sanctions on Venezuela. Who paid the consequences? The population. And very severe consequences. So these are things that we have to look at, to not to have suffering in the country, and improve the economy now. And the food prices have to go down, right? Have to go down
Like massive
drastically.
food production, delivery infrastructure in the agriculture industry, and I mean
Yes,
we have a lot. We have a lot we can do.
and improve exportation. We have to we have so many hand skills that they don't look at people who are well qualified and can do things. They are not looking at it. They're just only importing. They buy something and they come and they resell it again, or say, or you have the middleman buying and selling. That will have to stop that, right? Have to stop it. We have to focus more in exporting local products. I don't know if you agree with me, sure, with that, but we have to.
Totally agree with that. I think everybody here agree with you on that. You know, the thing about it is the PNM has deliberately suppressed those who try to produce in the country.
Mhm.
You know, they conveniently manage that to their convenience because they don't want certain people to expand. So I mean,
that's
we're
deliberate.
kind of like we in Cuba.
Yeah.
Gary, that was deliberate. There are certain that
Definitely.
middle class couldn't get foreign exchange to develop and grow their little businesses that employ 10, 15, 20 people all around there. It was all the
They kill off the SMEs. But you know, that's 62 years. That is 62 years of oppression. That is not just now.
You see, next thing too as well. No, I work in the oil field in the Petroleum of Venezuela, PDVSA. No, that refinery that they closed down. That is a very, very, very dangerous move, and only one or two person or a group of person has how you say monopolized the population, wholly population on the I don't know how you what is the word to use, the wholly population
Hostage.
Hostage for fuel, right? So that plant as well, we process our own petroleum. We process our own petroleum, and we can even rent the plant as well to other countries, like even to Venezuela, or other countries to come and refine the petroleum.
We was processing Venezuelan oil at one point. We was processing Venezuelan oil. You know.
Well,
that's the only day.
Yeah.
But you can't do it now. You cannot do it now with the geopolitical situation and Marco.
Well, that was one option, but
yes.
But what I'm thinking is that will the opening of the refinery, let's say in 2 to 3 years' time, if it becomes possible, we will be able to eliminate to a certain extent the foreign exchange shortage. Anyone can shed some light there?
Sorry, Mr. Singh, I didn't hear the question.
If it were to resuscitate the petroleum refinery in Pointe-a-Pierre, would you think that in a matter of 2 to 3 years after it's starting up, we'll be able to alleviate some of the foreign exchange shortage?
Yes, yeah, certainly. I think, but we have to establish a philosophy with regards to how we redirect the economy. How do we redirect the economy? And there are certain basic questions to ask. What are our natural resources? Now, natural resources, I will include scrap of of various kind, like paper, aluminum. We have a lot of scrap in Trinidad. Iron, there's a lot of scrap, right? I will include
Yeah.
that in the raw materials. And we have to now ask the other question: can we make things with them? Can we make things with them? Can we use our natural resources to manufacture things? And so when you apply that philosophy to the refinery, we have the oil, we have the raw material, the oil, the crude oil. Already have a refinery. We don't have to operate it to the extent that it is designed for, but we should at least have the capacity for around 50,000 barrels a day. And overall, they were a major contributor of US dollars to this economy. But that can be worked out. And I think what we also have to establish, any new investments that is coming in, that we have to look at it in terms of what is the impact on the US dollar, our US dollar earnings. What is the impact? Is it a net user or a net earner? So within that context, all investments or all um, economic activities, business activities, we have to look at it. Does it contribute US dollars, or does it substitute imports, and see what is the impact with regards to our US dollars? So to answer your question, I used to manage the Petrotrin account for years at the two banks I worked, and they were always a positive contributor of foreign exchange. But apart from that, we are living in a very volatile world today. Shipping, we're seeing it in the Red Sea, we are seeing it in Panama Canal and so on. That shipping could be affected at any point in time. So we need to immunize ourselves from international volatility of the oil prices and oil supply. And here it is. Here it is. We have the basic to ensure that those two objectives are met. So we need to make it happen. What has to be understood, and this is where with the OWTO unions and all of that, is that we want to start again afresh and only hire the persons that are necessary to operate the refinery in a most efficient manner. We cannot be having freeloaders again in the refinery. We can't afford it. And I think those are some of the conditions. And the unions will understand it because they were given a massive amount of money, almost free money, when they closed down Petrotrin. And that is why there was no real protest outside Petrotrin. Because listen to this. This is not being discussed anywhere. But let's say one of this, and most of these union members or senior members, maybe 1 year again to retire. So I have 1 year to retire. It's cheaper for me to pay you for that 1 year and give you your retirement. But they got a massive amount of severance payment. They've worked 30, 40 years in the industry, and they were given, they were calculated now as if they were being severed, and they were given a second lump sum payment. So that is why they kept quiet. They got a huge amount. That's the seniors. They got a huge amount when they closed down Petrotrin, and they would. I don't recall, Gary, that anybody at Petrotrin objected or protested the closure. No, because they were well paid. They were well
Well,
paid.
not to the extent. I mean, there was some by the union itself, but you know, we'll deal with a lot of those issues as we go forward. But while they're working on Petrotrin, we have to focus on what other income uh, we can focus on in the meantime and redirecting. So, like you're saying, with the shipping issue in in the Middle East. And I have a serious problem with us needing US dollars to buy goods made in China. I really have a serious problem with that. The goods are coming to the US and then we buying from Amazon this way. Something has to be done with that. That has to be redirected. So that's something would have to be dealt with. Then I mean, with the trade within the Caribbean and South America, Central America. I mean, these are markets that we should be focused on. And I mean, we have intelligent people like Mr. Pandey used to say. We have a lot of intelligent people. We're not producing anything. Why? Because that's where the PNM deliberately suppress. They try to suppress the intelligent people. A lot of our people left the country, went overseas, and expanded themselves, beyond the capacity that Trinidad could imagine, and they are willing to help. And they never accommodated all the efforts of our Trinidad nationals who went overseas and expanded their skills. They never accepted those help. They always put up a wall. Any suggestion we make from outside, they're threatened by it.
Yeah.
But that suffocated the economy. And this is what we're hoping to change. And the population gave Mrs. Bisesa and the coalition of interests, I'm going to reiterate, a mandate. And they didn't give her this mandate to maintain the status quo. So the permanent secretary and all the party group employees whom they are going to try to call a cause obstruction of a government, the population will have to know about that, right? Because they voted for that change. And they are the ones that the voters hire the government. And if people obstructing the government deliberately, this information has to come out. I'm not going to tolerate it. Okay? I absolutely not going to tolerate it. And none of us should. And I'm looking to build this team between TNT and our citizens across the globe, wherever they are located. They are welcome to join this team. We are making an effort. This is a mission TNT effort. That's how we formed a mission to rescue the country from the PNM, right? And we are seeing so much corruption and delays with the EBC results. You see how much trouble? And yet we are seeing about information in the media about they throwing away ballots down in San Fernando East, and I'm sure they did this on other places. So there's a full recount going on, but they got licks beyond their imagination, and we come in for them. So go ahead, gentlemen.
Well, as they say, Chinese refrain always say, when there is no corruption, there is money for all. If there is corruption, there is no money. All right?
But if I may add, I think this is where the manifesto has many, many things. The question of the government really studying it and put together the expertise to make it happen. So I think that is a requirement that they should do very early in the game. It's just not a manifesto to win the government, win the elections, but rather to guide you going forward. Because a lot of thought has gone into the manifesto, the previous one and the previous one before that. And these are things that we can access international resources, probably at very low cost. Low cost meaning to say we can go to different friendly countries such as India and get the projects. They can even probably offer to do the feasibility study of certain things, and they can bring investors. We can provide the land and start back the sugarcane industry. I mean, sugarcane. I have a small plant myself. I'm proud to see that it has been a hobby, but I could see possibilities on it. Um, and with the Venezuelans here in Trinidad, we have probably over 100,000, and these are small plants. Uh, Dr. Maraj, you familiar with papillon?
Yes, papelong con limon as well.
Well, well, we make that. I make that now. I need to
Yes.
expand. If you look at the government, Uttar Pradesh,
Mm-hmm.
they had a marvelous structure where they had district economies. If a district was good as making rice, as growing rice, they produce now, help the farmers actually increase their yields, increase their varieties, and help them now export around the world. And there's something known as black rice. They renamed it Buddha rice because that was what Buddha ate when he came out of the of his meditation and so on. And so they have developed a big market in the Buddhist countries. So they have different things that we can do. We can have districts here, for example, Muruga with the scorpion pepper. We say, okay, we as the ministry going to help you, not just not growing it so much. We'll help you grow it, but we also help you market it and put a label on it, put a branding on it, and sell it abroad. So these are things I think where the government has to come in. For another big example, uh, one of our major food input is chicken and chips. Now we have already started preparing sweet potato chips, but we can grow Irish potatoes here. Jamaica's done it
Mm-hmm.
successfully, and they are exporting potatoes. Potatoes is not a Irish potato is not native to India. It was a Scottish gentleman that brought aloo in India, and you would swear that that is an Indian food, but that is not. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying there are several things we could do, but we don't expect it to overnight. But we can within 5 years decide to do it. I have introduced here locally um, sandalwood trees. Now I'm not a professional agriculturist or so, but I mentioned to the government, and they included it in the 2015, is that we can actually convert some of our lands in sandalwood and grow professionally. So Australia has done it very successfully. Australia, they sandalwood, they may have had some in the forest, but by and large, they have huge plantations of sandalwood.
Mm-hmm.
Teak wood, we can recultivate that. The last set that was um, planted and grown in Trinidad was by the British many, many years ago. You could imagine if we had 100 acres, or sorry, 100,000 acres in mahogany, we could start off now a whole furniture industry that could be world class. So there are
Yeah.
too many exciting things to be done, and we have to get going. And this is where government has to listen now. Government need not provide monetary support, but certainly in terms of legal support and in terms of supporting the growth of industry, ease of doing business, and maybe even a guaranteed market for vegetables and so on. So government has a role to play, but you must have a vision and a plan, convert it into a plan, and that is where people like yourselves could come up with things. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to go out in the world and see what is being done, similar climate and so on, and replicate it.
Yeah, yeah. You see, a simple product like the pepper from Trinidad and the curry from Trinidad. No, is made in Trinidad. No, I bought here about four boxes of each type of pepper, and it went away so fast, and they were asking me for more. No, simple product like that. The people was asking me, boy, it tastes real good. I want that. And the curry here from Trinidad, they don't want curry from anywhere else. It had to be from Trinidad. They need it. They want it. It's very tasty, for the people here. But they cannot get it. We don't have access to that because simply the government prefer not to do business with Venezuela. No?
But one of the major input into chicken, I,
Yeah.
I just throwing this out as a thought, right? Is chicken feed. We probably import about 400 million worth of chicken feed, and we can grow chicken feed here. Sorghum is a good, and you have other plants that we can grow. Sorghum, when Caroni were experimenting, they imported sorghum seeds. Now
Hmm.
there are different types of sorghum. One is for the syrup that you can make syrup with, like cane,
I think I
and the
raised
others
the
sorghum is that it gives you a nice head that is used as chicken feed. And the report I got was that they planted several acres by spreading that seed with the aeroplanes. And he said the growth was so abundant. Now, all of that we can do in Trinidad. Just put the Ministry of Agriculture to work, give them about 200-300 acres of land, and say plant these things and let's see experiment and see how we could roll it out to the rest to the farmers and give them a guaranteed market for it and a guaranteed price. You know, we need a very serious Ministry of Agriculture. We cannot ignore that. Cannot
Yeah.
ignore that.
Yeah, now the if you look at the present condition of the agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago, it is below. It was stifled in a way that you stifle the local farmers, no, and they concentrated more in importing foreign products in the country. And as I always say, the middleman is there. The middleman there, he come, he buy a tomato in 1 cent and he want to sell it in 50 cent, no, and then who the he they come and they come now and they sell it more expensive to the population. Now, why not encourage the local people, the local farmers, support the local farmers and give them what they need to produce, and it will cost much cheaper, simply eliminating the middleman who's there who's the businessman, no? And there are companies, a lot. I would want to call names, foreign companies like the chicken and chips. I don't want to say any name, but no, they are generating foreign US, they are generating American dollars to take out of the country. We have to look at that as well, no? Encourage more local companies to work, not encourage foreign companies to just to come in the country, generate money, and don't invest in the country. The majority of foreign companies, almost 80%, they take out the foreign exchange. Am I correct?
No, that is correct. If I can use one of the food chain as an example, we import all the ingredients. All.
Yes.
You're making
Yes.
pizza. Pizza boy will import the dough. They'll import the tomatoes. They'll import everything. Right now, when they import that, you have local franchise. The local franchise, they have to pay a management fee. You have to pay a lease fee. So there's a lot of money going out. You're correct. There's a lot of money going out. But initially, we say, wait a minute, that's foreign exchange coming in. That is foreign direct investment. And I think a lot of us misunderstand the nature of foreign direct investment. We don't need that type of investments, to be honest,
No.
because too much money goes out. And worse yet, there's no investment coming in if the foreign company um, and their local partner borrow the money locally to get the business started. There's no foreign direct investment. Nothing comes in. But there's a huge drain on foreign exchange because all the signs and things like that is imported. So
You know,
I fully agree with you, Dr. Maharaj, that we have to look at all these things clinically and say what is the impact on the stock of foreign exchange we have. If any of such investment deplete the foreign exchange, we're saying for the time being we don't want it. We don't want it. When Amoco bring a massive rig to Trinidad, the last one, I think it was BP. We were building it here that generated some kind of work and income for the local workforce. OWT objected, so they said okay. Well, they went to Mexico, built it, and shipped the rig to Trinidad. When it comes to Trinidad, that is recorded as a foreign direct investment, but there's no
Hmm.
benefit to Trinidad.
And it costs almost 10 times more the cost.
Well, precisely. So we have to look at all these things, and the criteria is very simple. What is the impact on our stock of foreign exchange? For example, again, another big example. They say Carnival brings in a lot of foreign exchange.
Oh, no, no.
The amount of money that goes out, until we address our propensity to import, we are not going to solve the foreign exchange problem. For Carnival, we import everything.
Yeah.
Everything
Carnival should
we
be
import.
privatized too. I think those shows can be held. There should be some of those things where it can be held in a like in a stadium and you charge a ticket, so that the government don't have to fund the festival that much. There could be like a charge, to enter and see the performance. That would be, that they could self finance the show. So they are not benefiting. The pan man don't benefit that much after the festival. So we have killed those industries. So I mean, it's a deliberate suppression type structure. I mean, for over 62 years, I mean, we really have not utilized our full potential because of the structure of government. So finally, the people have woken up, and I want to congratulate those, especially the young people. They came out. The young
Mm-hmm.
people came out and say, "Oh no, we're not tolerating this." So I want to congratulate our people. I did call for a vote with vengeance for Stuart Young and Dr. Rowley locking the people out of the country. So I did call on our citizens to vote with a vengeance. But go ahead, gentlemen.
Well, all we are speaking about is excellent plan, but I will always repeat, have and say it again and again. If we don't deal with corruption, we will not have any improvement in the country. No improvement will be done. You can be whoever you is. You can be right hand of Kamala, and you're doing what leads to jail. We have to start from there, and you will see that the economy will improve. Either it happened here in Venezuela, and it happened here in Venezuela, and it will can work abroad as well. We have to invest in our people to in education, educate them more, give them access to their skills. Right? We just only paying for handwork outside as well, and we're not educating our people. We are not investing in our citizens. Well, when I say we, the past government were not investing in in the people. It is built like that. You understand?
Well, they
No,
still want to keep a
when you
leash on the necks of the people and have control. You see, that give them the control.
yes.
By the help of God, we can break that yoke. But we must try to give them as much information and education to our people. What is our plan of action? This is a plan. I mean, they did an excellent job by helping to liberate themselves. They joined the fight,
Mhm.
and I am grateful to see that happening. And the love and the unity you see in our country right now. I mean, I really enjoy seeing how our people came together. All races of people coming together and celebrating. They fought together, they celebrate together, and we must not allow the PNM to destroy this unity that we have, and we must keep that going and make sure that the PNM never returns to the powers of government. This is something that we have to make sure that we do, and all of us has to get involved in assisting our government to succeed. Lending support as much as we can. And I mean, I am very confident that you gentlemen are very interested in doing that, and I really appreciate connecting with you. But what some of the things that I mean we have to flush out is when you go to do any kind of business in the government ministry, there is so much complications and delay and deliberate
Mhm.
destruction. That has to end. We have to put an end to that, and that comes with we were speaking earlier, Mr. Suman, to with dealing with the permanent secretaries and that structure there. But doing business with the government has to be an ease of doing.
Have you seen how the improvement of Singapore is a country that it was in war, that it was had no road, no building, and look at them today. They
Yeah.
are They are a great empire. What happened there? They had an iron fist to deal with things. You're on the boat or you go out and drown. One out of the two,
Mhm.
right? We have
Yeah.
to. You have to be strong. We do have to be brave. We have to be. The only way that PNM will fail and we start to do nonsenseness. We have to work 24 hours. It's not like you're going to yeah, I'm a minister and I can fly over Trinidad with a helicopter or going with the best car and I eat the best place. No, no, no. That has to stop. That cannot be. You understand? We have to have this mentality 24 hours. I'm a minister. I call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have to respond. Just like what Gary did. Well, he texts by mistake. No, he ring me by mistake. I respond to him
The
on
other,
time.
the other idea because
Yes,
Gary was working 24 hours a day when I was in my bed.
24 hours a day. We have to have that
Yeah,
service 24 hours a day to 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 our people. 24
yeah,
hours a
but
day, right?
yeah.
So
So
we
when our
cannot
people was
sleep.
stranded outside, when our people was
Yes,
stranded outside, when I was in the bed next to my wife or in the grocery or heading to the beach or at work, I was responding, right?
yes,
And that is
yes.
what I did for people almost 2 years. With short tongue and Dr. Rowley locked our people and brother, can you help me? And I sent X amount of email. 6 months, I sent an email, 9, 10 email for an exemption. I did not
Hmm.
respond, and I cornered them. But I was
Hmm.
always available when they messaged me, whether it's WhatsApp or email. I responded.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
Okay.
yeah.
there's an area that if I may put on the table for consideration. Up till now, we don't know whether we are getting the maximum from our oil and gas industry. We don't know.
No.
I think when that question was posed, whether they monitor how much was being exported from the offshore
Hello.
oil
Yeah.
industry and
Hello.
oil companies, they said they rely on the oil companies to tell
No,
them.
no, I think I'm
You
on
know,
mute now. Still, I was
so
trying
You
to
want
talk,
me
but
to tell
maybe
you
I'm not
something
on
there
mute.
about that?
Still, I don't know.
tell me,
I'll try.
tell us.
Hold on.
Ah,
Hello.
we here in Venezuela, we see everything that is going on in the oil field in the coast of Trinidad and Venezuela, right?
Yes.
What is going on with the foreign companies? They take Venezuelan oil. We watch them. We don't say anything because we have a lot here, and it goes out. The amount is taken out of Trinidad is sufficiently to have everybody almost $1 million a year, and
Mm.
that is small money. You understand? It does the companies, the oil companies, the foreign oil companies, like what they did in Venezuela, they actually saquear. I don't know what is their how you say the word
Extracted as much as they can.
as they can, but in a greedy way, right? And that is what is going on in Trinidad as well. They're taking the oil, they're using all the documentation legally from Trinidad and they're carrying out as well. When we have, I don't know the word is in English, or is the same fiscalization. You check everything, and a person who is not corrupted, you can say, "Hey, took a few $100,000 and close your
Hmm.
mouth." No, we have to have people who are willing to be honest, right? So when we check up, what I am seeing, Trinidad is so small and the huge oil capacity it has. With that alone, we are an empire.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, let's assume it may not be a problem, but I suspect it is a major problem. And how best that can be addressed with the help of perhaps international experts who probably are not subjected to be bribed, whether a country could provide us that kind of expertise. Um, so I think it's unfair for us to be. I witnessed it in finance, and I know I have all the facts before me with
Hmm.
regards to these multinationals just raiding the treasury at will. So you
That's
can
the word,
imagine,
rating.
I think
Yes.
we all agree that's a high
We have seen a long
probability
history of
of it happening in the oil industry. And
yeah.
what can we do to probably close that leakage, close that leakage.
Nationalization.
Yeah,
National
I mean,
here in
allow me
Venezuela, we
to
did it.
interrupt that.
We nationalize the majority of the oil company, and we give them no opportunity to take out oil on their own because they were taking out. They were reporting. They were reporting like something like 50,000 barrels of oil a day. When we do check up on them, it's almost 400 and something thousand barrel a
My
day they were
goodness.
taking out.
Yeah.
Right. And that is the same thing that they are doing in Trinidad. In Trinidad, by the coast of Venezuela and Trinidad, there's a huge oil um, um, well,
Deposit.
a very huge, very huge. We in here in Venezuela, we have we cannot calculate it as yet. That it's so big, and it is being exploited by the foreign companies that is in Trinidad right now, and that is why they are so interested in the US is so interested in giving license to these people, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I raised that issue for a simple reason. I think it's an enormous amount of money not being accounted for. And
mhm,
if with the international network, with your friends and associates and so on, who can actually give government advice? Because just imagine, just imagine Dr. Rowley and Stuart Young, two of them who are not oil experts or anything. They went to Houston. Houston, whatever problems they went to, probably to negotiate prices and so on. They went to negotiate the price of the crude that we can get from them, the price of the oil, and they were given $1 billion. Now, no company will just fork out $1 billion except to know that it's benefiting them. And
yes,
that billion
that's true.
US dollars, Rowley came back with very proud look. They got $1 billion from, I think it was one of the companies in oil companies operating in Trinidad. So I was shocked. First of all, that is not the procedure that any professional government or institution will send two amateurs to negotiate the price of oil. That's one. Secondly, if they gave you $1 billion, it's probably they owe us 20 billion. And
Yes,
how do we find out the amount? So these are things that a money and fool and a fool is soon parted. And I think we are being taken for fools. And that is where we need the best international professional advice who are experienced in the oil industry. So I'm just suggesting,
That's because we
given
put a
your
fool in charge.
networking, if we can locate such a person or company that is not willing to dig out our eyes, but come and assist us on that. And if we are talking to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, if you can get word to her that this is something that ought to be looked at urgently, because whilst Kevin Ramnarayana, he was the last minister, I don't think he has the necessary experience then to ensure that we are getting our fair share. So I don't know who the Minister of Energy will be, but I'm saying that's an area we need to strengthen to make sure that we are getting what is due to us.
I would like to ask a question if anybody can help me. The thing is that on the past regime, a lot of poor or very bad decisions, economic decisions were taken. The liquid gas project, the missing money, $3.36 billion. What's the status of that? Can we go after all these state-run companies and the government per se to try to recover these monies? Do we have the legislation inside to go after, the so-called perpetrators and recover all this so-called stolen money or fraudulent money or what caused us to get into this situation for the past couple of years?
For, for example, how I look, the process used for closing down the refinery, that was
Yes,
criminal negligence or criminal.
correct.
That was a criminal act. Because
Yes,
what they did was deprive Trinidad and Tobago citizens of a certain amount of earnings, and that could have impacted on their personal pockets.
yes.
You can't. There's a process for dealing with all of this. And whilst you may not have a straight procedure, written down procedure, there's something known as what ought to be have been done in the circumstances. There was a recent case in England where the courts, I don't know if you all recall that, where the courts pulled up Starmer to say, wait a minute, you didn't do an impact assessment, and therefore, on what basis are you making the decisions to go back into the EU? You have to do an impact assessment, a feasibility study. Where is it? You can't just make a decision on a multi-billion-dollar investment as Petroleum and just shut it down. For what reason? And we suspect the reason was to cover up the corruption that they had with by giving fake oil by um, one of the smaller Trinidad companies who were drilling for oil on land, and that was the reason.
And what
But
about the other
you're right, Gary.
issues?
All these things have to be investigated in a very, I would say, a low-key matter, but it ought to be investigated.
Well, they took the oil from export the oil. They did not give clear account on how much they're exporting.
Correct.
They placed the population of Trinidad and Tobago to pay a very high price, a very unfair price of fuel, right? Because when a country, what I have studied, no, I'm not economics, no, but what I have
Mhm,
studied, when a country has natural resources that belongs to the people, that should not be an international price, right? Now you sell international when you go and export. When you have that here in your country, that has to be cheap for the people. That's a right to the people, right? So we cannot pay international prices for gas, for fuel, and having fuel in Trinidad, the oil in Trinidad, and paying for international price. So what they did, they cut down on cost and um, caused the country to have more expense for a middleman, right?
mhm,
If you look at the gas distribution, the gasoline or gas or fuel distribution in gas stations, most of them come. They say they carry a certain amount of fuel, and when it reaches there is the next amount, right? I do not know if you know about that, Gary, right? Um, so starting up the oil, the refinery again will have to reduce the cost of fuel. When you have the increase of fuel, you are justifying prices to go up. You are justifying prices to go up because of transport for food, right?
mhm.
Transport for the population, for gas. So this is one of the main things what we have to do now. Start back up the refinery and eliminate middleman. I don't know
We
if you
know we
agree
practice
with
a
me.
kind of black marketing kind of a marketing in
Yes,
Trinidad and Tobago. That's what we
yes.
practice. And tomatoes grown in Trinidad should not be sold at US prices, right? So a lot of things we will have to look into.
We
Well,
have to,
I
You know,
see oranges and fruits. They import are very expensive, and the oh man,
Yeah,
that's the
hello, are
reason.
you here? Hello, hello,
Yes,
you hearing me?
yes, yes, Doctor Maraj.
So let me just jump in a bit here and say a few things. I notice you all rambling all over the place, so let me see if I can find out what is it you all are saying.
Mhm.
First of all, before I say what I have to say, can anybody, is that refinery salvageable, or did any study being done on what it will cost them to refloat the refinery, and if they need foreign exchange to refloat the refinery? For example, they may need things from abroad to restart the refinery. What is the dilapidated state of the refinery today? Do we know? Or is that yet to be done, or what? That's my first question. So if you could answer that, I'll ask the others, please. Somebody.
yeah.
Well, I would say, Doc, We need some time. The Prime Minister hasn't sworn in yet, so our team has to be empowered to do so. So we would not be able to know. Remember how Dr. Rowley and them conducted himself? We were all under restraint, So we dealt with the bully and the dictator there. So he had to give us some time to figure that out.
Is it possible that the refinery may not be able to restart because of the lapse in time that nothing was done? Is that possible?
No. Kevin Ryan is fully confident that we can do it. Might take about 3 years to really, but he has to go. Remember, the technology has to be updated. The mechanical machinery has to be dealt with. The infrastructure has to be dealt with. Just like leaving a car for 4 or 5 years and you use it, right? Everything seized up. You had to change the seals. You had to oil the machinery. So there's a lot to be done.
So it's possible it wouldn't cost them much to refloat it, most likely.
Yeah, Dr. Maraj, there's no official report on it, but unofficially, because that was my concern as well. Because once you park up machinery, it takes a lot to restart. But what I understand is that a team of person that goes in quite frequently and check all the machinery, the instruments, and so on, and they reported that look, it's not difficult to restart. But you're correct,
Good.
that has to study has to be done to know what's the cost of restarting. When they were selling, um, they were they were talking about for the Nigerian company to spend a billion US dollars to get everything going. So I don't know where the truth lies.
Many were raising issues like malfeasance. I think Dr. Maharaj made reference to those kinds of. In fact, all of you did. So isn't that it, don't we have Auditor General who need to look for source documents? For example, you're making reference to the money being paid in the United States to Rowley and whoever again. That be something can be investigated by the Auditor General by law? Is that not possible? No, yeah.
I
We had
think
to give our
not the
government a
Auditor
chance.
General so much, but probably the Attorney General could initiate such an investigation. I
Okay.
don't know if you
Thirdly,
recall, many years ago, the government hired Mr. Bob Linquist.
yeah, I think I heard of that. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, Bob Linquist,
yes.
uh, to investigate several or uh, corrupt transactions or suspected corrupt transactions. So he did a fair amount of work here. I personally
No,
have done a fair amount of corrupt transactions concerning government fundraising, but as an individual, it's difficult. But the Attorney General could actually initiate that,
As
and
far as
their
getting the
arms are
refinery going,
far-reaching.
as far as getting the
also,
refinery going, don't forget we have OWTU on board and their full team of
Yeah.
experienced people here. So I am not worried about getting that going. They are fully the experienced people who knows the deal is on board with us, so we don't have to worry about that. It might take some time. How much time we don't know. It has to be relooked.
Gary, that's a double-edged sword as far as I'm concerned. I'll tell you why. The U.S. Virgin Island has a Hess oil refinery. That's the largest refinery in the whole Caribbean, in the West Indies per se. And it only just has like about 105 employees that run that refinery. Today's modern refinery is not labor intensive, it's technologically intensive. And that is what brings about the economies of scale, the efficiency in the operations. No longer, you need all these umpteen, personnel per se to be in a refinery. A lot of
That could
mechanization.
cause us some problems. Remember, they supported us, so
That is what
that
I'm saying.
we have to be careful how we handle that.
It's a
But I
double-edged
mean,
sword.
listen, the experts said the guys who've been in the industry, they're still around.
and Ved, again, back to you on the question of I noticed you mentioned something about the banking system in Trinidad and Tobago, that they are not run properly. Number one, number two, they siphon foreign exchange. Number three, they hoard. I think the last time we were saying they hoarding the foreign exchange. And
Or the
I
banking
think,
system, Mr. Maraj, Dr.
say
Maraj.
again, say again.
I say you asking about the banking system.
Yeah, I'm talking about, because I heard you mention it again tonight. My question to you would be, or anybody would be, isn't it that these companies are floated in the exchange market? Like why don't the population buy into the shares, so we can have a heavy input of local control by the people of the country, so that they could have a lot of greater say in how the banks are being run? Because some of you talk about the bank that are being run
Well,
not in the best
let me
interest of the
answer that.
population.
It is the
So
government bank that is most delinquent,
why
and that's
couldn't
the
we?
irony of it all.
Yeah,
Right. So
I've
you're saying that
seen.
it doesn't
It's
have
the
a price, a
government
share
bank.
price.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a share price to
Yes.
command the control, to take control of it, because you could private enterprise, private people, small people by the shares could have a commanding interest in the business.
Yeah, but
Is it, it
if the group of investors in the bank
yeah,
don't know even what to look at, if government
yeah.
don't know what to look at, if central bank don't know what to look at, then the banks are doing as they please, because the management of the bank, apart from earning that's the senior management, very good salaries, they get bonuses at the end of the day. Now, as far as I could see, and my research has shown, they are granted a license to deal in foreign exchange, to trade in foreign exchange. And tomorrow, central bank could tell any of the banks that we are pulling your license. They don't have to give reasons for it. They don't have to give reasons for it. So if the banking sector um, are hoarding over two billion US dollars, that's a lot of money. That's almost 2 years import of food for Trinidad. They're sitting on it and depriving it. If you go to the bank and say, look, I want a little foreign exchange to import certain things for my business, they say they don't have, which is a lie. So we need strong government, and the Minister of Finance and the government, the Prime Minister, they could instruct central bank, call in the governor of the central bank, and say, look, instruct these banks to only hold 5% surplus over your U.S. liabilities, just 5%.
Hmm.
So what we need
Is it
really is leadership, and that's easy to do. I already wrote to managing director. I said this is not a good practice. Please reduce, please reduce your thing. Now you're under watch. Now with the new government, they could do that.
is it against the law in Trinidad to hold on to foreign exchange? No, not hoard. Are you saying hoarding? Hoarding, maybe not the word you want to use, maybe, but is it against the law for a bank to hold on to whatever cash they may have, for whatever purpose they may have for holding on to cash? A bank, and the reserves are important for a bank to have reserves. If they make a
No, but
case for,
there may not be specific laws, but definitely it is not in their actions are not in the interest of the general population. They are not in the national interest. And if you
but
are not acting in the national interest, then something
but
can be done. There must be some laws covering that.
that's fine. But the
Secondly,
interest of the
secondly,
shareholders,
don't forget that the central bank, one of the central bank objective is to ensure that we have a stable exchange rate. If somebody starts hoarding, what is the implications on the exchange rate? It's going to put pressures on the exchange rate. So they are acting against their own uh, um, their own government that owns the bank. No, no, they are. I said earlier, Dr. Marat, that once there's something wrong, you could go and search for the law and to deal with it. That is against public interest. It is against public interest. It's as simple as that. Don't play the fool. So we can just tell. In fact, that was the tone of my article for FCB.
but
Don't
but
don't
if
don't play the fool.
but the bank also has a responsibility and an interest in their shareholders, which is which is maybe equally important as the public interest.
That
Because
is
we got
correct.
to
So
run.
they are running what I would call a franchise risk. They are running a franchise risk because tomorrow we can ask the central bank to cancel the license for bank A, B, or D, or whatever, cancel their license. That is a trading license, not a hoarding license. In
Well,
many countries, there are specific laws with regards to hoarding basic food stuff. So since we are importing 94% of our food needs, that means to say, if you're hoarding FX, you're effectively affecting all the importation of food. You can't do that. But nobody looks at these things, and therein lies the problem. No parliamentarian looks at it.
but shouldn't the people put pressure on them to, like you raising the issue of the foreign exchange hoarding and a few other issues? Wouldn't the enlightened population bring pressure to bear on the elected representative? Who is their mouthpiece really in this situation like this
Well,
to
I was just
actually
waiting for
intervene?
elections and try to work with government and give them advice as to how to go about it. Now, the Minister of Finance could just tell the FCB, say, why are you hoarding all this? Please explain. Let them explain. Let them explain. Give them an opportunity to say why. And the only reason that they're doing it is one is they're waiting on a devaluation because they're putting pressure on the exchange rate. Really, you're waiting on a devaluation? Very interesting. And secondly, they're getting a nice spread because I mentioned in our earlier discussion, you're borrowing at less than 1% and you're
Mhm,
investing at 4 and 5% in US Treasuries. That will
mhm,
make sense. We need very strong, intelligent leadership
Mhm.
to take us out of this hole that we have found ourselves after 10 years of mismanagement of the economy. That is what we need, strong leadership. Now, many persons will have the knowledge, but they don't have the confidence that they know. That is a big problem with us
Mhm.
in the developing country. We don't have
Or
the
the
confidence
testicular fortitude.
in ourselves.
So last night when you all spoke, I think Ved, you were not there, but last night I think we came to a conclusion what is to be done in terms of the healthcare and in the immediate run. Because I was asking you all to try and organize your thinking along the line of short term, medium term, and long term,
I
because we
think
want this government to be in power for a little longer to ensure success is carried throughout the entire system. So tonight, then, my question is to all of you who are in this meeting tonight, like last night, are you all concluding what is the next step you're going to take into, especially the short run thing, you all discussed many things tonight. Is there anything, Gary, that you all will want to put on the table as a follow up? So somewhere along the line, we'll say, how is that going? Like I remember, I think Summit, Mr. Singh last night had been undertaken a task to at least drop something so we can have a look at it at some point or at least make the proper representation. Do you all
I'll
have
send it to you.
anything in
I'll
conclusion
send it
tonight,
to you or
Gary
have him
and
send
Zed
it to
or
you.
anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
I have done that already, Professor Mirage, and I have sent it out.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yes,
oh.
yes, yes, yes. Oh,
No,
and
No,
I
it
yeah,
went to
that,
the.
right,
Are
excellent. But
we,
what about tonight now? Are we going to do something tonight, Gary? Are we going because Ved have a lot of? I know the last time we spoke about the amount of feasibility studies already in the shelf and all kinds of things being done just to dust them out and rejuvenate them, bring them just like the oil refinery. So, is there anything that because I noticed you all talk about agriculture, and I was saying the last time agriculture is a quick turnaround, a 6 months turnaround. That's one of the things
what?
that have the biggest and immediate impact. Just in the agriculture, and your Trinidad problem with agriculture is that
Yes, yes,
often you
yes.
find the market, the tomato will drop to a price of 99 cents when everybody plant tomato. And then another time, nobody has tomato and it goes to $20 a pound. So your problem was to regularize the supplies in such a way that when hard time the supply will be there, and I guess you all will know how to do that, canning and all agro business, agro enterprise. So is there any? I was suggesting the last time that agriculture is one way to attack this because we need short-run solutions. If you have to impact the immediate problem that they in current, many have mentioned it, and I talk about food all the time. So, is there any way that we could have some kind of a plan, or you have something you have already, maybe dread, so we can rehash that again and say, take it to the government or whatever it might be in the front burner. We want to bring something. In other words, we want to bring some things on the front burner to implement. So here's an implement in the short run. So, is
Yeah,
there anything that like
Dr.
last time?
Maraj, yeah, I I did a lot of research. Let me give you one simple idea, very very simple idea.
Mm-hmm.
We supply food for the school feeding program,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's about a million meals uh, per week during the school once the schools are open. That's a million meals per week, right? So we can say, okay, we are going to look at the menu to ensure 50 or 60% locally produced. So you could imagine the demand now for locally produced items that you, with regards to the nutritional um, content of the menu, that can also be designed. Um, and we are saying, okay, we are going to accomplish this target within the next year, and call farmers together and see how that can be done. That's one.
Right.
Secondly, they require about a million drinks, that is soft drinks or juices and so on. We can easily set up a sugarcane juice bottling plant. Technology is now available in India without any what you
Conservative.
call foreign foreign input into the juice. It remains pure, but they're able to extend the shelf life up to 1 year. And a plant like that will just take about certainly less than 500,000 TT dollars. So some things like that could be done. We just have to do the final research in terms of the capital requirement, the land requirement, etc., and how many, and put people back to work. So
Yes.
look, the other day, the beer industry said that they're going to use syrup from cassava. So the government should have grabbed onto that and say, okay, what are your needs, and what resources we require to supply that amount, what capital investment and so on in a processing plant. So the many, I would call this micromanaging these things to make it happen and do up the project feasibility studies and everything. So this can be done. Um, Dr. Maraj from Venezuela, the panela, liquid panela. I mean, that's what we're looking at,
Yes,
and that
that
is a
is.
much more healthy sweetener than normal sugar, and that is what we should be encouraging in Trinidad to use instead of sugar, white sugar.
I agree. I agree.
What
Very,
what I
very,
have to
very
do is
healthy.
I'll have to get your email, and what happens is I'm going to loop everybody into that email, including Dr. Marge, um, from New York.
I, in for the two, if I might add the last, for the 2000, around 2012, I developed a program to recommence the sugar industry. So I could send that to you and look at it, criticize it, whatever, see if there are opportunities there, and see if it makes sense. Now, Kamala, in the 2015 manifesto, we said we were going to start back the sugar industry.
Yeah.
Now we
Well,
can do it
well,
in partnership. We can bring an Indian company to operate the mill,
right.
and all
Because
government has to supply about 15,000 acres, and we bring in a foreign investor to manage the mill, and then we have the local farmers providing sugarcane, and going to get about 10,000 persons back to work,
Yes.
in a productive manner. That where the factory will guarantee the price for the cane farmers, and that is how that particular industry For years it survived. For years it survived. The argument against it is that you could import sugar cheaper. I said, not necessarily. If you don't have foreign exchange, how are you going to import it? And I keep making that point. If you don't have foreign exchange, we cannot eat.
You
There
can
were some
import
farmers
the
in
sugar
South.
cheaper and put a lot of people out of work, right? That's what they did, right? Put a lot of people out of work, and this was a very another discriminatory process that took place, to kind of cripple some people economically. So I mean that was doing too good for for some people that are not in the best interest of the PNM. So we will have to look at these things about going forward. But
Certainly, Ved, you may want to look at really to come up with something in terms of the turnaround time for some kind of agriculture. You talk about the school feeding program, which is an excellent idea. What I'm saying, I'm looking for something that we could go to them with because in the end, she's going to have a planning commission. They're going to have a group of people who look after plans and all kinds of feasibility studies and come up with something. And they'll be
I
inviting
think
people to give their opinion and everything. And so we must be ready when that time comes.
I
So,
think Bill already did some stuff, right? You already did some stuff for the government on
yeah,
that aspect. But you could always send it to us so that we can look at it when you get a chance.
sure. And there were some farmers in the south. Somewhere in the south, they were trying to start back the industry. I don't know if you're aware of that. Where that was about 5, 6 years ago, I think it was, some years back. It'd be interesting to find out what happened with them and why they didn't get through to what they were trying to do. I know you mentioned India. India will have factories like they would have some kind of cottage industry making their own sugar. They have small scale industries that are going on in India. It's just a matter of they have the technology to do it for us. We just have to really purchase the infrastructure to get it going. But definitely these are things that could happen. But I want to caution you all, and you all mentioned so many important things tonight. That is why I like you to engage in such a way that this is the medium, this is the short term, this is the plan for next 1 year. As I said, just not 1 year. This is the plan for a 3 year, 2 year, beyond a 5 year, and this is the plan for a 10 year and beyond, or whatever it might be. So if you could
This,
organize it in such a way, like some of you mentioned to start back the refinery might take you 3 years. I hope not. I hope we could get it done in 6 months. But I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that we could get some oil to get it going. My Guyana might be willing to help if we approach them properly. So I mean, you all know, you're all in it. I mean, you're already in it. This is not brain science coming up here. We're already involved. But updating and understand. Just one more thing, I want to warn you: be careful that you might meet a lot of opposition along the way. Don't
Mhm.
give up. You're gonna have some problems coming because these things that you all are mentioning, Trinidad is that was my issue last year. Do you remember? Trinidad population and the wherewithal is not prepared to do any drastic change. They will march, and they already the PNM tell the people already we'll also march if we don't get things that we want. So be careful. I mean, not to be careful, but I don't want much pressure to go on the government right now. Let them, But we must be prepared when the time comes. That's what I mean, really. To cut it short. Go
Well,
ahead.
Dr.
Sorry.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
you see, when we are doing the things properly, they have no justification to match. You understand? The oil refinery, as big as in Trinidad, we have several here. One was sabotaged and blown up here in Venezuela by a foreigner, right?
Mhm.
And in 6 months, we built everything new again in 6 months, and had the plant operating in 7 months.
Mhm.
Rechecking took 1 month to recheck everything, and in 7 months we had everything functioning again,
Right.
but with a better system, updated system on tool beans, on the tool beans and injection, everything that you can imagine about that. So it is getting the right people to operate the plant or rebuild the plant. It will be done in let's calculate. Let's put it long term, 1 year, right?
Mhm.
It's a small country. Very small country. I will say that it's a very small country, and that can be done in less than a year.
Right. So
From my
that's what
knowledge
we
in petroleum,
yeah. So this is a short term. Anything 1 year or less is short term.
Yes,
Beyond 1 year and 1 to 5 years is a medium term. So
yes,
that's the way you want to organize. So by the time the
and
next election come around, you'll have some long term plan in, and some already completed, and some are just about to complete it, and some will be undertaken. You're
yes,
always going to tell them we have plenty more to do. Put on the
yes.
table again in the election next 5 years. We have a lot to be done. Here's what we did. This is in motion, and we have a new one to come here. So we want to continue. Keep us in government. I looking at a long term government this time, not no 5 years. If we can't do that, forget it.
And a very effective government as well. Very
Yes,
effective.
that all of the well, if we look back at the UNC in their inception and even the NAR, they were no nonsense people. I mean, they were not some of them were not well politically smart. They were astute business people. They were really sticking to the task. I mean, Robinson problem, we know what happened there, but we're not going to talk about that. But if the the UNC really that is why the American government likes the UNC because from the kind of feedback they gave to the UNC, like they see them as pro business, and that is why tonight I kind of cautioned you all last night. I was saying I think I don't like too much government involvement. I like the free enterprise system to be, as much as even government must take over something. I know Dr. Maharaj from Venezuela not used to these things very much, but as far as possible, I don't like too much of government involvement. I like the people initiative to take the lead, and possible the government could start up something, but immediately relinquish ownership to private enterprise or body of other people, whatever. Or however, I don't like government to do all kinds of stuff because
Okay.
government not smart,
Uh,
government not
okay.
efficient. Yeah, go
Okay. I
ahead.
want to mention something there. No, when
Uh-huh.
you have 100% government in an industry, you have 100%. Let's say the you have to have 51% of the government
Okay. Yeah.
shares in a company, that is,
Okay.
and 49% of private, right? Why?
Yeah.
The 51% that the government will make sure that the private industry does not take ransom the public or the country or the nation, right? And the 49% of the private part is to ensure that the government workers do not be or do not have people, how you say, lazy people are not doing the work as it is, because it is if we all know that all most of the government workers are, they really don't want to work. They don't care. But when you see the 49% that it hurts your pocket, you will have good labor. You understand what I'm saying, no?
Yes. Yes.
Right?
I
So they
understand. Oh,
cannot
that's fine.
hold ransom, and they cannot hold ransom the country, the private part, and the government cannot do as they wish as well, without consulting the private part. So 51% and a 14 and
Yeah,
49%.
some industries it could be like that, but that should be a few and far between.
Yep.
That shouldn't be much. Couple of industries, yes, but not a lot.
One of the things, if I may add, I think that is a good formula. One of the things I found in Trinidad, that our private sector, they just prefer import and sell. And they have not taken initiatives, and there are several areas to take initiatives. And this is where government now could set up a project department, just looking at feasibility of different types of investment and what kind of assistance that government could provide. And you're correct, government could start, and with the whole idea that once it's up and running, they can sell shares to the public. So
Mhm.
Yes.
that's another alternative in getting
Capital.
appropriate investments going. You can't wait on the private sector. It doesn't matter how much investments you give them. They just want something almost immediate return and a simple investment. You buy and you sell. Another area, if I may just add this last point for consideration, apart from the oil to make sure that we're getting our dues is our taxation system is not appropriate for Trinidad. And
Mhm.
since every country should have a taxation system that is that is in line with their economic structures. If we take food, and most of our things are imported, our propensity to import, we should establish that number. Since our propensity to import is so high, it means to say all the goods and so on, services and goods in particular, are coming through the ports. And that's the best place to have duties and forget everything else like VAT and so on. Forget it. Once you manage your duties, your duty regime, the ones that you want to keep prices low on basic items, you have no duties. And the ones you want to control in terms of import, you increase the duties on those. So we say, like in Singapore, if you want to structure, the car duties are very, very high. Why? Because they are limited in roadways and they want to control the number of cars that are on the road. So managing the duty at that point is very, very important. And therefore, you would not need all these people in the Ministry of Finance to administer the tax regime and a variety of tax regime that we have. And then you have incentives where you're giving back tax, and it's a mess in my view, and it's really just work for accountants. So that's an area that we have to look at. What's the best tax system for Trinidad and Tobago that government could still have control and be very efficient with regards to tax collection?
Well, what I look at the taxing as well is a way that the people can pay, not a ridiculous amount, because you cannot tax a man who has already paid his tax on his home and then he has to pay tax on his money and pay tax for everything. Not everything we have to tax on the population. No, I don't know if you agree, because
I
how can
fully
you
That's
agree.
correct. That's correct.
how can you tax a citizen who is 65 years of age and he spend his whole life to build his house or get his house? How can you tax that citizen? 65 years of age and he's paying tax.
No,
Come on, man.
yeah, Dr. Maharaj, listen, I've written several articles about this property tax. It doesn't make sense. It
Yeah.
discourages investment. Discourages. So it means to say, if I want to extend another 2 rooms, my children are grown up, I'm going to pay tax on that. So I have to think twice if I don't have the income to pay that additional tax. If I'm a retiree and I don't have that income, I'm not going to expand. So
No.
it discourages investment, and that is it's a brutal tax, property tax. I don't know why they have that property
Well,
tax.
as I said, the middleman, no, because when corruption is there, there is no money. When there is no corruption, the money flows everywhere, right? Um, we have the tax has to be so low that encourages investors to come in. You understand? When you have a high tax system for the citizen, and what you will say to the foreign companies who want to come in and invest, they would not. They would not. They just would not. Right? And I agree with taxing, and yet I do not agree with taxing as well, because a 65-year or 60-year-old person cannot pay tax. That should be how you say, suspended. Or he already paid for his tax already with his age and his service to the country. Right? Now,
Exactly.
uh, I don't know if you agree with me. You all know? Agreed.
Yeah,
No?
Dr.
Total
Maharaj,
agreement. So
Dr.
that's why we
Maharaj,
throw out that government. That's why we throw out that government.
Yes.
yeah, there is
Yes.
a system in place where a threshold of income doesn't is not taxed. So I think you're referring to that, Dr. Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
You're referring to an exemption that citizens are
Exemption.
going to get based upon their income stream. So
Yes.
that is taken care of. More and most likely, I don't know what the Venezuelan case is, but Trinidad it takes care of such a thing. But so let me just ask Ned again, because Ved is referring to the value added tax. In our time we brought that in our time. We thought it was a good way of doing it. And But of course, there is room for improvement and changes if it doesn't working properly. Time to change it. So that'd be another area where that we could. The government will be looking for ideas on that because right now I think they were saying that they don't want the property tax. If am I right? This is what Kamala is saying. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Most
going to
likely they
cancel
don't
it.
want it. So you're right. So they want something. They might have to have something else. And you're referring to import duty on goods imported. But what
Right,
happens with that would be when you import substitution takes place and you have little goods are being imported, the government will not have revenue to do the social contract with the people. So they might have to find tax money from somewhere else. I don't know if you think about
right.
that also.
Okay. Let me address that. Nothing is cast in stone, and that's why I said a taxation system has to be appropriate for that for this point in time. We are not going to have import substitution overnight. That will come over a number of years. At that point in time, you could reintroduce maybe a sales tax or something like that. But we have to be practical, but also flexible to change with
Mhm.
time. Now, in many countries, the government has a lot of assets. They are not putting their assets to use. And I jokingly mentioned in one of my articles, if government going to tax property, they have most property tax themselves. In other words, put their property to work, put all their land to work, put all their buildings to work, put it to work. They have a tremendous amount of assets. They have a lot of investments in the oil sector, Petroleum. They were getting taxes and dividends and so on. They have other investments that they ought to get dividends from. So, government has to buck up as well. Government can't just tax the people when they're short or they have a budget deficit. What are they doing?
I just when you're looking at to your tax structure again, and they'll be looking to do some amendments in the future pretty soon. I think that in one way, I came out of Santa Rosa Heights in Arima, and we wanted to own properties and we couldn't because we were not incorporated, and we were given a house. The price of houses was falling. The companies wanted to give us houses if we want a house, two houses. Just a matter we couldn't own anything because we were not registered as such. So my thing is that I think that if there is any level of property tax, however small or however large, that should be driven by the locality. For example, I don't know what you call them. We used to call them county council, whatever we call them now. I think regional corporation. That should be done by them. Whatever tax could be done I'm not saying it should, but if there is any property tax, it should be administered by them. It should be done by them so that they depend less on the central government to give them resources. So in that way, the government they have, they could raise their own cash, in other words, which might be a better idea.
Well,
I don't know if that will work well, but I think
we
that's something to look at.
yeah, but the number one thing is that we said no property tax, and I don't support the other property tax because the property tax empowers government to seize your property, and I'm totally
Yes.
against that. Mrs. Visesa, um, how to say, was able to do many things without taxing the property tax, without that in the 5 years, and they accomplished a lot. So it's how we manage the money and how we channel children, right? So I'm totally against the property tax. We need to drive the revenue stream of the country. We need to work with the people and the SMEs to help them build themselves. PNM suppress for 62 years most of those people who had any idea of doing a business to expand themselves. You can sell doubles and dice it. Little things. You don't trouble nobody. From the time you try to do something that is going to cause some competition for the so-called P&M finances, then you are in you're causing trouble. So they manage things in that structure. I mean, Mr. Vince Hiram knows that very well, that how that was done, and most of you know that. So we have a government here now to how to say, to restructure things, and the people give the government the mandate. So let's advise the government as best as possible.
But don't forget they came on the premise of no property tax. So I think let us stick to that for now. But when you look at the property tax legislation, is very, very complex. It is based on your rental value. When the property market goes down and the government come and say, look, I could rent this house, my rental value is 10,000 a month. I would say, great, property, let government come and rent it, take it and rent it and pay themselves tax and give me the balance. I'll go in
Nice
and live
one.
in a little hut in the. Are they willing to do that? Are they willing to guarantee that? Rental value is a very strange, elusive, very elusive. And just
That was
imagine,
convenient for them. That was convenient for them. They're all people. That people in the UNC own house in the USA and they're paying taxes. Hey, that was not our structure in the first place. And those taxes pay for the services. In the school system, the police, and it's a different kind of structure. But again, it has put a lot of American citizens at risk when they retired. So it's something we don't want to encourage in Trinidad.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Well, that to raise funds, though. The government need funds.
Yeah, but they cannot take the funds out of they cannot take the funds out of the people. They have to give the account on the oil and the production, increase the production. That is when you increase the production of the country, you increase the income of the country. That is mathematically and scientifically proven, right?
But
I told you
you
what.
have to create this structure where you empower the people to empower themselves. I mean, you put that platform there, that foundation. The PNM has an opposite thing where you keep your restraint, so they empower themselves all the time. They in
You,
control of
you
you.
You see, I saw a video some time ago that a member of parliament was saying if you don't pay your tax, you're coming for your bed and selling it and these things. Who said that? What is the name of that person? Right? That is the first person that does not pay anything. Right? We can charge tax, but we have to know where you're charging the tax. Now here in Venezuela, in Venezuela, the almost 90% we have something here they call condominium. No, the majority of the population lives in apartments and how you say closed organizations, right? You pay for service of your security or your well nobody really pays electricity here in houses. It's so cheap, they don't pay that here, right? I pay something like uh, it does not reach to $3 American dollars a month. It does not reach for
Hmm.
electricity. No, and it's a right given by the government that private citizens you don't charge them tax on their apartment or their houses. Now, big business, big buildings, okay, yes, for the measurements and those height and those things like that, they pay tax, but you cannot charge your citizens tax and put them under that heavy strain. You understand? You all understand what I'm saying, no?
mhm,
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
The next thing is the water system. Nobody here pays for water because that is a natural resource in the country that belongs to the country to the citizen. Now you charging the water bill so high. Where does that money goes? That is my question. You charge tax, you charge for water, and where does that money goes? Big question, no?
well, yeah, Dr. Maraj, like in different countries, if the water company is privatized, sorry, if the water company is privatized, they will charge a rate that will cover the expenses and give them the profit. In Trinidad, we have WASA, which is a government company, and they are subsidized, but they still charge for water to the population. Similarly, with the electricity, they charge as well. And you're correct. In many countries where government has the necessary resources, like Saudi Arabia and so on, even in Delhi, in India, the government never charged for water and electricity um, below a certain amount of usage. So you're correct. A lot depends on where the government will get the alternate revenues, because at the end of the day, government has to spend to maintain the country and manage the country. So that's why I made the point. Every country is different, and an appropriate tax regime has to be structured to meet those particular situations, those conditions.
Yeah, but somebody has to foot the bill for
Yeah, yeah,
bringing the water to your tap. So
yes,
it's nice to build a reservoir, but the water wouldn't get to your house until somebody gets it going. So
right. But
maintenance is
if
what really
yeah,
heavy
that's
industry does.
correct.
What
But if the
situation in
government,
Trinidad? Go ahead.
Yes.
I say, if the
Yeah.
government owns the major, for example, Saudi Arabia, they they own the major productive sector, oil, and they are getting their revenues. They pass on that revenues by way of concessions, low, no property tax, no charge on electricity,
Uh-huh.
no charge on water. But the government has to fund itself, and then they
Yeah.
could afford the subsidy. If they don't have, they have to be a combination of taxes and cost generation,
You
Right.
know,
Because
cost
somebody could look at,
recuperation. Yeah.
Ved,
Uh-huh.
um, the in days gone by, the big oil companies in Trinidad like Shell and BP, they used to have their own water supply. They never depend on the government water supply. They have
Hmm.
so much water to give that even the general population within the neighborhood, they get a supply from free of charge from the oil field.
Last time he did not allow it. I
The
remember.
Perhaps we have too much of centralization in terms of they have two big reservoirs and they draw everywhere that goes everywhere. They need to break it down. I don't some that's maybe you never did that yet, but some feasibility studies has to be done. If you can localize the catchment area and make them in maybe every county or what they call it, regional corporation will have their own water supply, water system. That may be more efficient. Because Trinidad landscaping and infrastructure, Earth is so different. This landscape and landslide, it really kind of hard to manage from a centralized position. So I don't know what if you ever think or look at that in any way. Anybody looked at that before?
No, but I agree with you. We don't even have a water harvesting system that is appropriate for us. We have 80, 90 inches of rainfall per annum, and we are short of water. That doesn't make sense.
nope, nope, nope.
We don't even harvest the water that fall on our roof to use. So, all those things are what I would call bread and butter issues, where the government could design a system and assist homeowners in terms of um, what they ought to be doing to ensure that we have water at all times.
Yeah, give
A
them
small
tax
country.
incentive
Eh?
for tanks.
I have seen some modernized system on that. You hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can
Yes,
hear.
yes. Yeah, yeah. I've seen some modernized system. I was looking at it with catching the rainwater and treating it at your local residence
Come up with
there.
something.
But far as the flooding is concerned, all the water runs in out in the sea because we do not have the infrastructure in place. But what we, like I said before, we have to immediately do is doing the cleaning and irrigation before we get to the bigger job. These are the immediate things so that we save the farmers the unnecessary destruction of their crop because to plant is a lot of labor and time and investment into your product, and just to have it come and washed out and you have no compensation. That is heart wrenching and totally unacceptable. But it was good for the PNM because it causing distress to certain people that they don't care. You know. Mm-hmm. So that comes with all the geographic and political and racial discrimination. But look, we finally have a change in government. We have the right government in place. So it's just a matter of time of putting the things in place. And I've rehashed these things. These things have been discussed, with our political leader. I know Vade has sent some information. Sumant has sent some things. So we have all the right people here. It's just a matter of keeping engaged, remaining engaged with the government, and with our ideas and suggestions, and let's build from there. We are not dealing with any strange people who hasn't been in contact here.
with the government and the ideas shared already. So we just want to reiterate it and bring it to the public what we're thinking, engage more people internationally and locally on the ideas, and I will try to exchange emails with everyone so they're in loop of what you have done. Also include Sumant idea on things. So when you get a chance after the program, you could message me your email. I have Dr. Maraj, both Dr. Maraj email and Sumant email also. So we could build this communication team here. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Okay, I think
Thank
I'm
you
done
all.
tonight. I'm done
Well,
tonight. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night and
Yeah,
thanks.
we meet again.
yeah, we'll
Yeah,
meet again
thanks so
soon.
much,
Thank you
Gary.
very much,
Gary, could you
everyone.
send me your email?
Yeah, I'm gonna message you before you go. And Suma, do you have any last words, or Dr. Maraj Puram Maraj Parum Maraj? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I was surprised. No, if you have a water well in your land, the WASA says that that is their own. Here in Venezuela, you can have your land with water wells. Nobody touches it. The government does not interfere with that. No, it's crazy that system over there. No,
That's PNM for you, buddy. That's why the people rise up against them and kick them to
yeah,
hell.
yeah,
So we just
right.
have to do all that we can to assist our government. VID has all the financial, how to say, ideas to advise them on how to move forward. So let's see how that communication flows. We want to keep the communication flowing between us and the government. Mr. Suman has done an extreme amount of work also alongside with VID. So we have all the right people here. To help the government. So, gentlemen, Sumant, do you have anything extra to say at this point?
no, very encouraging. My issue was exactly as Dr. Maraj was, that how do you go about raising the sufficient capital to at least pick the low hanging fruits to kind of get things mobilized and starting up and so on. Because the new government will have challenges. In fact, the first thing they have to do is do an audit in the treasury and see how much money is available, how much money is committed to be spent, and what is the balance.
Yeah, well,
Unless,
I mean, we're going to have a team doing that, right? And then we'll have a team focusing on the other things we talk about. So,
correct,
Hmm.
yeah.
but
So I assume, you know.
unless you know how much money you have to spend, you are constrained in a way to tackle new projects.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, the water, the issue with the flooding and conserving the water and treating the water, that is something that has to be done most definitely. And
Prioritize, yes.
if we if we plug, like I say, the way I looking at it, I'm no financial expert or no economist. Why I'm looking at it, if we plug the leaks and the corruption and the hoarding of the dollars and channel the money into benefiting the people of the country, we can get in the right direction. So
Yes. Correct.
that's the way I see it. So I mean, with one man collecting, what, $700 million for rent, and the other one putting his wife and giving them a contract, and they're bleeding the money and suffering the people, and then they're boasting about raising the prices of gas 3 times, and they riot there. Raising the prices of gas causes the prices of everything to go up because
Yep.
transportation, everything depends on transportation. I
Yeah.
mean, the food production to get to the store, you getting to work, everything. That is not something to play. We saw that here happen in the U.S. when the gas price went up, the price of goods skyrocketed. And well, I'm still
Hmm.
trying to understand how COVID caused the prices to go up because I mean, every time I went to the supermarket here, it was $2, $3 or something went up. It wasn't 50 cents like long time. So I mean, we're facing some challenges here in the US, and we have resources in Trinidad and Tobago that can really cut the cost of living, and those resources, all we all know, was suppressed very drastically and wickedly. So
Yes.
let's hope for the best, and we will advise as best as we can with our new government, and try to so to say, to sustain and uphold our new government as things go forward. But at the same time, it is important that you guys come on here and educate the population of the ideas and the strategy, and what's what is necessary to be done. With that, I want to say I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I will try to set up something soon again. I think tomorrow night I'm dealing with agriculture. In particular, I have someone with agriculture coming along, so I will send you guys the link as soon as I get confirmation with that person.
All
So
right.
thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you to all
Well,
listening audience. I hope this
thank, thank,
information.
thanks to everyone and good night.
Nice
Right. So
meeting
we
you
have
all.
right. So Mr. Siriam, the platform and the airtime is here to, as much as you need it to give the necessary information to our people.
Okay, great.
So that was
Thank
a
you all.
good night, everybody.
Good
Okay,
night.
good night.